It's a joy to reflect with you on this wonderful celebration of Advent. We've already considered the inner life of the Trinity, the creation of the whole cosmos, the creation of the angels and of we human beings. But let us consider first the bad news. Because if we're waiting for good news, we have to see why good news is good in juxtaposition to the bad. The bad has to do with the choice for sin, the misuse of the will, that intentional choosing against the way of love. The angels did it first with the fall of the angels, given that one great definitive choice they did. And so they chose against God. And a third of the angels fell and were demented. They became the demons. And the two-thirds of them remained good and worked for God, and still to this day advance his kingdom and are very much present in our lives, even though we may not perceive it not. But those who fell, the demons, they war against God and his Christ. They seek to undo his plans, even if God is stronger, and he is more beautiful, glorious, and wondrous. Of course he is. They seek to foil his every good intention as best they can all along the way. So that then leads to us. We human beings who are also made so close to God were to enjoy his friendship, his intimacy, walk with him in the cool of the evening. And now, since Christ, to share in the divine nature through Christ, the devil snuck into the garden, so to speak, and he lied to Adam and to Eve. He said, does God really want you to be happy? He proposed that God was duping us, that was out to get us. Well, the truth is the devil was duping us, and he was out to get us. We were told that we were not to eat of one fruit on the tree. Everything else all human beings could enjoy. He just asked us to do one thing, and we couldn't even do that. The devil said, surely when you eat of it, you'll be like God yourself. The temptation for us all is to displace God, kick him off his throne, to make ourselves God and ruler and Lord of all things. And it cannot be. And so we turned our hearts. Our first parents, Adam and Eve, turned their hearts. Scientists tell us that we're all directly descended from two first original human beings, and the sacred tradition and the sacred scripture know their names, Adam and Eve. And they turned their hearts, and they passed on the legacy and the infection that is original sin, by which we human beings are inclined to turn our hearts against God and his holy ways, and his right ordering of not only this universe, but our own lives. So sin came into this world, and it disrupted it. There had been harmony before. We were at harmony with God, each one of us. We had harmony within our own self, our own psyche. We had harmony with one another. We had even had harmony with the natural universe around us. But by choosing against the ways of God, so deep was the cut, now disharmony came into the scene. Now a disharmony enters into our relationship, each one of us with God. A disharmony into my own heart. That integrity I had in the beginning, it's lost to me. It suffers. There's a disharmony right between Adam and Eve in the beginning. It was that woman you gave me, said Adam to God. And then, of course, that's going to go down the line to their children, Cain and Abel, a first murder in the very first generations of the human race. And that disharmony will extend out to all the cosmos. We do not have harmony with the natural world around us. So a disharmony entered into the world. And we live out of that disharmony without God. The intellect, though still good, is darkened, and we cannot use it in the way it was intended to be used. We can still now strive by grace to use it the best we can, but things don't come to us as easily as God meant it to be. And our will is frustrated, not completely destroyed. You and I are not some horrible wretch of a darkened humanity, such as Luther and Calvin would propose that we are. But they are compromised, our intellect and our will, and it takes God's grace and our cooperation with it, the reordering of our passions, for us to come alive in a renewed and restored sense of our humanity. So the fall is real, and it bears consequences. There's consequences we feel into ourselves, the use of our intellect and will, that relationship that we have with other people. And then, of course, there's consequences that we face before God. For when we fall into sin, we fall away from right relationship, friendship, intimacy with God. And yes, we merit hell by that. We also experience it on the physical order, because that lack of integrity between body and soul means there will be decay that sets in the body. And ever since the fall, we now know sickness and pain, suffering and death. All of these are consequences of the fall, from the hard labor that we do by the toil under the sweat of the day, the labor pains of a woman giving birth, the very sadness of suffering, and the seeming catastrophe of death. All of this is the bad news that comes from the fall, passes down the line, and is inherited by us. Oh, in this season of Advent, we're honest about it. But then it gives us all the more encouragement to look for the good news, which we know is coming, which we know has come. We look to the good news in Jesus Christ.